receive a fair trial, I'm not so sure that how I would feel about a Confederate monument there, you know? I mean, I get that. I understand that. But I think where the mistake comes in and all the hostilities, there's a force in our country right now driving a wedge or trying to drive a wedge between races, okay, without a doubt. I mean, you see it, I see it. It's all over every form of media. You pick up a newspaper, you turn on the television, you turn on the radio, it's there. I think it's up to us as humans, as God's children, to overlook that and to get past that, okay? And one of the things that I wanted to say before we get started about talking about this specific monument that we're talking about is, you know, I've done a lot of research on the Confederate monuments, and a lot of them I could see why people are upset about what they represent, because not all of them, but some of them were built during the Jim Crow law era, okay? So if you do your homework on that, that tells you that, yeah, maybe the motivation behind putting that there was not with the best of intent, if you will, more of an intimidation factor, okay? I don't think that's the case with this particular monument that we're speaking about at the Calcasieu Parish Courthouse, and I'll explain to you why in just a minute. So, you know, I just finished a book about 2 weeks ago of Robert E. Lee's memoirs, and Robert E. Lee, you know, the Washington College, where he was the president after the Civil War, wanted to erect a monument of him there on the campus. And this was right after the war. It was during the revitalization, you know, the reconciliation period. And he told him, he said, I think we have much more important things to do in this country and as the human race than erecting monuments to represent a sore spot in our history. And I agree to that. I think the man was very wise in saying that. When you get right down to the nitty-gritty, the part that I have a personal problem with is House Resolution 9700. I'm quite sure you've heard of that. Okay, it's public law. It was enacted September 2nd, 1958. Title 38 grants veterans of the Civil War that fought for the Confederate States, grants them the rights of American soldiers. It's cut and dried. It's been argued all the way up to the Supreme Court. It's cut and dried. If you read it, and actually I made this copy for you. You can take this with you. If you read it, it tells you that. It's not just Confederate soldiers. It's any soldiers that fought on American soil in any war. The Indian Wars, Mexican-American Wars, all of them. That being said, the soldiers that fought, now, whether we agree with their politics or not, as to why they were fighting, okay, that's irregardless. It's been voted and made law that they deserve the same benefits that the Union soldiers got, okay? Here's where the problem comes in with me personally. If I take the ideology that the anti-monument people, the posture that they've taken across the board, okay, without looking at each monument individually, if you take that posture, let's say I don't particularly agree with the United States being in the Vietnam War, okay, does that give me the right to protest the Vietnam Memorial Wall and ask for its removal? utilizing the ideology that they are, it does. But that doesn't make it right. You know? That is there to memorialize the 58,000, close to 59,000 lives that were lost in that battle. Whether we should have been there or not, it doesn't matter. It's there for the families of the soldiers that gave the ultimate sacrifice so they can have some form of closure. And it's also there for the ones that were surviving that came home with survivor's guilt so they can have a place to go and vent.
Now, one thing I have heard, it seems like consistently with people that I'm talking to, that it is a memorial site, that it is representing those who passed. And when I did visit it, I saw the wreaths, and personally, it does seem like a grave. It almost felt like a grave site. But what would you say to those who say, hey, and I think we talked about this, but when they walk up to the building, it's just the symbolism of it just kind of irks them a little bit and messes with them?
I would say I certainly understand and I actually feel for them and their opinion. I am pro-monument, but I'm not dead set against moving it, okay? I personally think it should be moved. We have a very, very nice Veterans Memorial Park that the city's put together. I know that for a fact because the Vietnam era helicopter that's out there, Jerry's machine was part of that project. We actually mounted that helicopter out there. So I'm not against moving it, but there again, what I said when we first started, I don't think any elected official within the city council, the police jury, or the governor's office has the right to do that. I think if you want to move a monument like that, you want to make a statement, we're supposed to be a democracy, okay? Let's let the voters decide. Let's put an issue on the ballot and let the voters decide, okay? I personally think the monument should be moved. It should be moved right out to the lakefront. We have a memorial out there that takes care of every military conflict that we've been involved in, okay? Why don't we have one out there for the Civil War? Why can't we, those of us that have ancestors, whether they fought on the side of the Union or the Confederates, or like my family, we've got them that fought on both sides, okay? We should be able to buy bricks and commemorate them as well. Let's move the thing. That particular monument is, as you know, you said you visited it and you read it, it is dedicated to the soldiers that gave the ultimate sacrifice defending the South, right? You agree with that? Okay. Why not put it at the Veterans Memorial Park then? The law says they have veterans' rights. Seems to me it makes sense. It gets it out of the courthouse environment so that anybody, regardless of race, creed, or color, feels like they're not, they don't have the deck stacked against them when they're going to the courthouse.
Now, I want to drive home because I think, again, I've heard this consistently, that some people actually do feel like it's a memorial site, that, hey, it has nothing to do with slavery or nothing to do with actual fall in the Civil War. That some soldiers, hey, they might have been drafted or they just fought to get out of poverty situations. Mm-hmm. So you guys, supporters of the monument are saying that, hey, it's a memorial site and we just want to honor our soldiers.
Absolutely. I am a big, in fact, I gave you one of my business cards here. I'm a big supporter. I'm a veterans advocate. I have a nonprofit that we actually do different things with veterans groups. Last year, we made sure that every veteran that's in the Southwest Louisiana Veterans Home in Jennings had a Christmas gift. Actually had several Christmas gifts. We do different things like that. That's why I'm so involved in this monument. I've been studying this for months now since it came back up, and really and truly, our president just signed some kind of thing into law about imprisonment that law has actually been on the books for years. There's a copy of it right here. This first one with the yellow sticky tab. Statute 772 states it verbatim right there. The maximum penalty up to 10 years imprisonment for destroying, defacing, attempting to move, relocate, or anything else. Again, that's your copy. I feel so passionately about this. As I said a while ago in our interview, I also want you to take this. This is a list of my family ancestors that are veterans, okay? That goes all the way up to the war, from the war in Afghanistan, working backwards to the Revolutionary War. One of my hobbies is genealogy, and I've studied all of our family roots and all that. As you can see, if you look in this center column right here, we had quite a few fought on the Confederate side, but we also had 3 of them that fought on the Union side. And some of these folks are related. Some of them fought on the Union side or related to some of them on the Confederate side, okay? We had 3. We had 1 that died in a Union POW camp and 3 that were killed in action.
Wow. And I commend you for doing this. I think this will open eyes for a lot of people. And my dad served 23 years in the military. I'm Army brat.
Yeah.
So I was actually...
Well, thank your dad for his service, because I really appreciate it.
And I've had the privilege of moving around, so I've seen where communities can exist where it's multi-racist. That
Yeah.
It can be white, black, Asian. My neighbor was... Now, coming back to the South, personally, I have felt a little bit more of that racism, but I don't think that's everybody.
Yeah.
How do you think we can come together as a community?
Oh, I do too. I think what we've got to do, though, it's up to us to make a difference. Okay, we've got to, and that's the reason I agreed to do this interview with you. I saw you post on Facebook. You were having a hard time finding somebody that would go on the record and talk about, being pro-monument. I am pro-monument for that specific monument. I do agree that some of them need to come down, okay? Because, like I stated, most of them were erected during the Jim Crow era, okay? And they were erected for one purpose, and that was intimidation, okay? When lynchings were at their highest, pre-civil rights movement and during the when Dr. King was marching, those were bad times. That's a stain on the moral fabric of this country. It's not what our founding fathers had anticipated, even though some of them were slave owners. We can argue history all day long, back and forth, but the intention that our forefathers had was a democracy, a republic where everybody was equal. And we can do that, but we've got to we can't let the race baiters and the skin hustlers, we can't let them feed us this garbage that they're feeding us and dividing us. The conquer and divide thing. We cannot have that.
One thing I've also noticed, the people who have reached out are people of faith.
Yeah.
The 2 or 3 people that I've actually had conversations with, seems like the underlying common thing is that their faith kind of gave them olive branch out to reach out to me and have a conversation. Yeah. So how do you think that kind of plays into everything?
I'm an associate pastor at a church north of town, up in Longville area where I live. I have this discussion a lot with people, and I think %98 of the people in this country claim to be Christian, okay? Now, whether that means 98% of the people in this country actually read their Bible and try to follow in Jesus' footsteps, I don't know that. I don't claim to be an expert on that. But I can tell you that the idea of faith, when it comes to this, I'm not sure what Jesus would do. I think he would do the right thing. I think he would sit down with people and try to work it out, just like you and I are doing here today. Like I'm telling you that I think should be done. I think the folks that are just moving monuments in the middle of the night and things like that, taking them down and putting them in storage, I think they're going about it wrong. And I think although they claim they're doing it in the name of preventing violence, there's two kinds of violence. There's the physical kind, which we can turn on any day on CNN and see all over the screen. And then there's the mental violence that goes on, The people that have opinions, whether it's one side or the other, it doesn't matter. If they feel like their ideology is being threatened, then they automatically get on the defensive. You put those walls up. That's just human nature. We can't help that. But what we can do and what we have to do as people of faith and as a nation, we have to come together and understand that we have an enemy. Okay? Satan is our enemy. And he's come to steal, kill, and destroy. It doesn't matter what denomination you are. There's one Bible, and that's what it says. Okay? If we keep believing the hype that we're being fed in the media, that's what it's doing. It's dividing us. The only way that we're ever going to come together is we have to be smart enough to look past that. And we have to have what the Greek used to call agape. Okay, that's unconditional love. You don't have to agree with me, and I don't have to agree with you on everything, but I should respect your opinion, and you should respect mine in return. And until we reach that point, we're going to continue to have issues. It's going to continue to progress, And I think we've seen an escalation this time in the violence in other parts of the country that we've never seen before. We've had violent protests all through our history. And I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. If we don't do something about it now to come together as a nation, it's only going to get worse. And it may get to the point where, civil war is another civil war. I hate to think for my grandchildren that that's where it's coming. But I don't see, unless we can get enough people on board with what we're talking about to do what it takes. Now, I think the monuments that have been moved, that have been taken down, irregardless of whether your mindset is you agree with them or not, whether they were put there during the Jim Crow era strictly as an intimidation piece or not, I think the elected officials are going about it wrong. I think if they would come up with alternate solutions instead of grandstanding, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing grandstand plays made to get in the media. It's actually, I hate to say it, but it's actually turning into party politics. It's being used as a political party ping pong ball.
Who would you tell some of the local election officials, politicians about just everything and just hearing from everybody point of view?
I would say do the right thing, okay? Put it on a public ballot. Move it to the lakefront, Maybe we add another sidewalk on out at the lakefront and we add, for the Civil War, the only one that we don't have out there. We have all the other conflicts out there. And that way, not everybody has to go visit it. If you don't want to visit it, it's over there out of the way, It's not in your face.
I think, again, I appreciate this conversation. I think this is important for people to see, because even your take now is, I think, is very educational. It's thorough. You have your evidence, like you said. And I think people do need to come together. And I think conversations like this need to be had, because somebody may look at either one of us, you or me, and automatically assume something. But when you sit down and talk and listen to people, it has a lot more to do with, I think, just the overtone.
Yeah. And there again, I mean, the point that I want you to walk out of here with is understand that my thoughts are, whether you agree with it or not, it was dedicated to people that gave the ultimate sacrifice, okay? And they thought at that time and place, they thought they were doing what was best for the country. Now, whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think or what I think. It's what they were thinking at that time. I don't think the particular monument that's in question at the courthouse has anything to do with the Jim Crow era intimidation factor. I really don't. Because it's not dedicated to a Confederate war hero. It's not dedicated to Confederate ideology. Nowhere on it does it say anything about slavery.
That's one thing I did notice. It wasn't, because, like I said, I'm a military child, so I moved around and I'm going to school right here in Lake Louise. But, this past couple of weeks, my first time actually just going there and looking at it. And I did notice that it didn't have a specific name on it. It was just dedicated to Confederate soldiers.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
And it does. The soldier that's on top of the monument is not even wearing a Confederate uniform, because so many of the Confederates didn't have uniforms. The Confederate Army was thrown together with militias, farmers with pitchforks, if you will. We have to be very careful about erasing history, okay? I agree with that. I mean, that's going to be the first argument that someone's going to throw up in the name of pro-monument. You got to be careful about erasing history. I agree to that to a certain extent. But we're not talking about erasing history. We're talking about making a small sacrifice in the name of harmony. Public harmony. So, if I was a local politician, I would campaign to get it on the ballot and let the people decide. Okay? But at the same time, I would make it known that, look, we're not talking about doing like they did in New Orleans, taking it down and sticking it in a warehouse in the middle of the night. We're talking about giving it a permanent home where you can still go and memorialize these soldiers that made the ultimate sacrifice, where it needs to be, at the military park.
Any final message to the people of Lake Charles? Anything you want to pass along?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Any final message to the people of Lake Charles? Anything you want to kind of pass along?
Yeah, actually I do. I would like to see us come together, put the petty stuff behind ourselves, and come together where one race, the human race, okay? This bracelet that I wear, I saw you looking at it a while ago. This is a Vietnam soldier that was killed in action. He is no blood relation to me. It was a young 18-year-old African-American man. And the reason I wear that is to remind me constantly, every day, when I get up and put it on, that skin color has absolutely nothing to do with being a hero. It's what's inside here. And we're all the same color on the inside.
Yeah. And I don't wanna see you laid out no more. I don't wanna see us laid out no more.